Football is finally back, Brett. We had the Hall of Fame game last weekend. There is the week 1 of the NFL preseason starting on Thursday night. This is episode 157 of The Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy, as always. We got a full slate of MLB games. We got some NFL preseason to talk about. Maybe even some golf and some other stuff to get into. Real quick, let's take a look at how we did last episode, Brett. I went 3-3, Slovenia -2. I talked up a big game on Luka Doncic there with my pick of the pod. They ended up losing outright to France, so that was a no-go for me, and I had an opportunity there too. I had an opportunity to continue to close in on our Levy Lock pick of the pod race.
Just couldn't do it, Higgins. Detroit and Cleveland not scoring enough runs for me. Mariners not coming through. But you know what? Maybe I got to start betting like you and taking some of these. I think I know about the Mariners, right? But really, what I need to do is find out what team Melky Cabrera is playing on and just bet on that team. Just nonstop. Blindly bet and back Melky Cabrera.
And then also live bet them and win extra big because it was a great game. Great game. Lots of scoring. Good game for the over, too. However, the USA Japan game, not a great game for the over. That was, I believe, a 1-0 Japan win, 2-0 Japan win. Not very good. Not very good. Let's jump into our Beginner's Boulevard, though, Brett. Talk about some closing line value. And now this is a way that you compare the value you got on the bet that you placed to where that line closed at before the game officially started. And now there's a few ways that you can technically do this. One thing you definitely need to remember with closing line value, though, is you subtract the VIG from the odds.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense because obviously as the point spread moves, the VIG will move a little bit as well. So, Higgins, I like that. And I think that's a good metric to point out because people will often just look at the spread.
Yeah, and the spread and over-under is actually where some closing line value can get a little bit trickier because, say, you get a spread at -3.5, but then it moves to maybe -5.5. You can kind of see that you got some good value, at least in terms of the points, but it gets a little trickier. We're not going to go into the full mathematics of it. This is Beginner's Boulevard, after all. If you want to take the intermediate course, do a quick Google search on closing line value for those full math formulas and everything. But it is a very good metric to look at in terms of finding out how good you are at sniping a bet at the right time. But Brett, let's just jump right into our bets right now. And I want to talk about the MLB because on Monday, we have the Field of Dreams game, baby, and this was something that was supposed to happen last year. I was upset that it didn't, but I'm glad they rescheduled it for 2021, and we have the Yankees and White Sox playing a professional ball game in Iowa with just 8,000 fans. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it should be a fun game, Higgins. Obviously, one of my favorite movies, so I'm sure a lot of people have similar thoughts, and we'll be excited to watch a game in the cornfield.
Yes, and so I was looking at this game, and my first impression was Lance Lynn's going to be on the mound. This over/under is set at 9.5, which felt really high for two teams that aren't very good at hitting overs. So I was initially going to be taking the Yankees under, which was an under 9 at +100, but then I realized the dimensions of this ballpark. And I don't know if you've looked it up, Brett, but this is a small ballpark, and they're going to have some fun in this. 300 feet to the left field corner, 350 to center, and 315 to right. Not the biggest park, not the smallest park necessarily, but this is something that these guys, I think, are going to have a very fun time at. It's going to be, hopefully, a very fan-centric game that has some runs and has a lot of people tuning into it. I don't know if we want to necessarily see a pitcher's battle in the middle of Iowa, do you?
Yeah, I mean 350 to center. It sounds pretty small to me, Higgins. So I'm with you. I could see. Well, let's put it this way. I don't know what I would bet in terms of over under 9 because Lance Lynn's pretty good. The Yankees have a lot of COVID and IL issues, so we shall see. But Yeah, I mean, I'm not backing Andrew Heaney and 350 to center the way Eloy Jimenez is hitting 2 home runs every night, Higgins. Maybe that Chicago White Sox team over could be interesting when that line comes out. Personally, I'm waiting. I'm hoping Johnny Public gets on the Yankees a little bit just because it's going to be a big nationally televised game. And maybe just a little bit of line movement in my favor for the White Sox. Get that line down under 150 on the money line. But right now at minus 165, it's too much for me. But yeah, the Yankees starting Andrew Velasquez and Tyler Wade's of the world. I don't know if the over 9 will 100% come through either.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with this money line. And you mentioned something about Johnny Public and the Yankees. And I think there is going to be a lot of action on this game on Thursday once a lot of the public realizes the game that's going to be played that night. They're going to end up betting on this a lot more. So there may be some movement late. I'm going to bet on this Wednesday night. Take Yankees plus 155. It's rumored Andrew Heaney is going to be on the mound against Lance Lynn. If that's the case, that I understand why the Yankees are the underdogs, but if it turns out it's not going to be Heaney and it's going to be someone else, that could be a bit of a reason for some line movement. I like the plus 155. I do agree there is going to be some money that jumps on the Yankees once more people realize about this on Thursday, so I'm getting on it early on Wednesday night with the Yankees plus 155 money line pick.
All right, Higgins, but you've got some more baseball picks. I'm staying away from the sport. It's a gross sport. No one likes baseball.
Yeah, well, since I just made a money line pick, let's talk about another case of money line picks that I want to do, and that's gonna be the Mariners and the Padres. So the Mariners, they are in a series against the Texas Rangers. Mike Foltynewicz is supposed to be the probable starter, but the Rangers have won just 14 games on the road this season. So give me Seattle, but they're minus 185 on the money line. That's a little too rich for my blood individually. So I went poking around, went scrolling up and down the lines to see which ones I liked. Maybe there was another favorite that was a little too heavy for me to take. And the Padres are traveling to Arizona to start a new series after they got punched in the mouth a little bit by the Miami Marlins. And so I expect the Padres to bounce back a little bit in Arizona on Thursday. And minus 165 to combine that with a minus 185 money line pick of the Seattle Mariners. That gives me a parlay that gets me close to a plus 150. It's plus 147 actually, but that's a good play. I like both those plays individually, but I'm not even done there with my baseball picks, Brett. I'm also jumping on to the last game of the night because we have the Colorado Rockies, who, like I've mentioned a few times, have been the punching bag in the NL West this season. But they are traveling to San Francisco, who is the best team against the run line in the MLB this season. So I'm taking them minus 1.5 at plus 130 odds while they're still plus money. We got Logan Webb on the mound against Herman Marquez. Two pitchers that are both in the threes for their ERAs. I think it's going to be a hitter's duel, a little bit more than a pitcher's duel. And the Giants, they've been playing pretty well. They had a good series against the Diamondbacks. Then they had a good series against the Brewers as well, so I'm expecting them to come back home now and be able to run shit pretty well. I like all of these plays, and it's going to be an interesting night for me with four baseball games on at about the same time.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. It's going to be fun to watch some baseball. There's going to be some football going on as well, Higgins. But let's jump into Moneyline Magic because we had a great comeback win on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I mentioned the Rangers Mariners who are wrapping up their series on Thursday. Well, that series started on Tuesday, and oh my, did we have an interesting one. The Rangers coming into this game, a 14 game losing streak, but they start off hot with a solo shot in the second inning to take the lead, but they are met with Seattle hitting two solo shots of their own in the bottom of the fourth to take a 2-1 lead. Everyone just wanted to go yard in this game, it seemed, Brett.
Yeah, I mean, Higgins in the next half inning, the Rangers tied things up with an RBI double, and things remained tied until the ninth. But Higgins, you mentioned this would get interesting. And come on, it's moneyline magic because we had an exciting finish.
Absolutely, we did. So, top of the ninth, we mentioned some solo dingers. Well, here's another one by Garcia. Solo shot gives the Rangers a 3-2 lead, but in the bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, and you walk in the tying run to force extra innings. That's an absolute no. You can't let that happen with your bullpen. And the Rangers, they ended up stopping the bleeding and let it force into overtime. And the offense was luckily able to bail out the bullpen a little bit, scored two in the top of the 10, and the defense held Seattle to only scoring one in the bottom of the 10th. So a very back and forth game here between Texas and Seattle, when Texas was coming in with quite a low point of a 14-game losing streak, but they snapped it.
Yeah, Seattle needs every game. They are slipping in that wild card race. That series with the Yankees didn't go well. Series with Texas up in the air. We'll see what happens on Thursday night. But yeah, Higgins, you mentioned it. This is not not what you want when you're the Mariners, and a great win for the Rangers because they need all these wins. It's going to be a rough second half here as they were sellers at the deadline.
And it's also always nice when you've already had a pretty rough season in baseball and you can tell pretty much you're out of contention for the playoffs by August or not, for some of these teams at least. And you can play spoiler. You can get those wins that these other teams really are banking on and really need. And that makes you go back to that locker room, and it makes these rough seasons that have a lot of L's a little bit more easy to deal with when you can get those few W's. They taste a little bit sweeter.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But let's jump into some more golf, like I hinted at, Brett. But before we get to that, today's episode is brought to you by DB. DB is a Scandinavian brand that makes backpacks and bags to help people on the move stay ready for anything. From the streets to the peaks, DB's gear is travel tested by some of the world's best athletes, adventurers, and creators. Over the past decade, DB has designed and developed, released, and refined the best bags in the market. With DB's patented hookup system, you are able to attach smaller products to your backpack, roller, or tote. We are teaming up with DB exclusively. Offer our listeners 10% off your next purchase by using the code POD10 or by going to the link in our show description. That's DB. It's time to move on. Time to get going. Brett, speaking of getting going, they got to get going with this Wyndham Classic. There's a few guys that are on the outside looking in at the FedEx Cup playoffs. Isn't that right? Because this is where things start to get interesting for these golfers.
Yeah, Higgins, the Wyndham Championship, not a tournament that I think is so interesting, not a tournament that I think people care a lot about. But Rickie Fowler is a guy I'm a fan of. I think he's a lot of fun. He was part of that young crew coming up just a few years ago, which we've seen Justin Thomas win a few, Kepka win a few. Ricky hasn't done it. He's actually struggled here over the past 18 months, but he's never missed a playoff, like the ability to make the PGA playoffs, which is a thing out there, people. I don't know
Yeah.
if you know this, but in order to qualify, you need to be finishing the top 125 on the PGA Tour. Ricky needs to make the cut in order to make that happen. Higgins, I can't bet him to make the cut here in New Jersey, but I can bet top 20 at plus 260. I think there's enough value there. I think Ricky wants to come out, show that he's turned a corner, that these past 18 months are behind him. He's ready to start playing some good golf. I'll take top 20 plus 260. I think that's a fair bet. He's got some motivation this weekend, Higgins. It's not the strongest field in the world, so Rickie Fowler, come on, time to break that slump.
Yeah, Rickie Fowler, that's a very good find of someone that should be in the playoffs. I mean, that's a very formidable name. You look at the outrights, he's plus 5,500 because that's just a name that people can kind of gravitate to. It's a familiar name in golf. And you speak of the past 18 months that he's hit a drought. He's not the only one. I mean, we saw this with Jordan Spieth before he snapped a cold streak earlier this year. Rory's kind of been in one. There's been a few other players that it's been noted of as well. So Rickie's not alone. Making the cut is a good opportunity. I do have a little bit more odds though in Oregon, Brett. I'm gonna stay away from them for you because it's a little too close to the pillars, and I don't want to steal your reasoning at least. But if I wanted to bet on Rickie Fowler to make the cut, it's minus 195 in Oregon. That's a little too rich for me. But if I thought Rickie Fowler would have finished in the top 40, it's minus 110. So I think you're getting a little bit of better value for top 20 at plus 260, but top 40 might be a little bit more realistic, I think, even though it's a little bit fairer value. I think you're getting some great value at that plus 260, and Rickie's definitely capable of that type of play.
Yeah, plus the top 40 bet, excuse me, not the plus. The top 40 bet at minus 110 is pretty interesting, Higgins. I wouldn't be mad at you if you ended up wagering on that. I think that one seems to make a lot of sense.
It's different enough. Okay. Well, Webb Simpson is the favorite in this one, like you said, at plus 1,000. He's followed in odds by Hideki Matsuyama, who just played rather well and was in a playoff with Abraham Answer last week. A very interesting playoff last week indeed. Brett, you did point one other name out that seemed a bit like a Jake bet. There is a name in the field, Wyndham Clark, and he spells his first name just like the way you spell the Wyndham Championship. And I looked at it. I looked for a reason to bet him, if we're being honest, but the man's missed multiple of his multiple cuts in a row, multiple cuts in a row at the Wyndham Championship. Like, there's just no reason for me to bet Wyndham Clark, so I'm gonna stay off. But you pointed it out, so I wanted to bring it up because that's definitely a Jake bet.
Yeah, Wyndham Clark at the Wyndham Championship, and you're not betting him? I don't know, Higgins. We should
I'm gonna
check
be
your
kicking
temp.
myself.
We should check your temp. I don't know. Does he have COVID? Are you vaxxed?
I'm gonna be kicking myself if we find out that Wyndham Clark makes the cut though, or if he finishes in like the top 40 because he's like plus 300 to finish in the top 40. That's how high the odds are for him to even just make the cut because he hasn't in so long. Brett, there's a few other things going on, like we mentioned. I mean, football's king, and it's finally back, and it's not just one game like we had with the Cowboys going on last week. I mean, we have a full slate of preseason games. I'm staying away, but if you were to bet some NFL preseason, because there is better value in NFL preseason than the regular season, where would you go, Brett?
Well, Higgins, I found some games that piqued my interest. I like to look at teams that, look, in these preseason games, we're trying to get out of there healthy. We're trying to not show too much of our regular season plan because we think we can be competitive, or we're trying to protect our quarterback, or whatever it may be. We don't want to show how we're going to play in the regular season. And look, there are some teams that you can get those reads. Bill Belichick, not going to tip his hand. He's probably not even going to show which quarterback he's going to play the regular season, right? Like, I expect to see a lot of Jarrett Stidham, more so than Mac Jones and Cam Newton combined, probably. Washington football team, we know they're going to air it out with Ryan Fitzpatrick. We know they're going to run with Antonio Gibson during the regular season. They probably want those weapons healthy in the regular season to compete with the Cowboys. So, Washington facing New England, these are older coaches, coaches that, again, are going to want to get out of the regular season, get out of the preseason healthy into the regular season with as many of their weapons there. Over under set at 36.5. Higgins, I expect there to be a touchdown or two scored in this game. So maybe a little more scoring than we saw in the Hall of Fame game, but not a ton of scoring. I don't expect Stidham and Heineke to go out there and light it up. I expect a lot of run plays, a lot of punts, a lot of tackles. So under 36.5 looks good to me in that one on Thursday night. And then Cincinnati plays Tampa Bay. I believe this is a Saturday night game, Higgins.
Yep.
Um, and I do not expect to see Tom Brady on the field. I'd be shocked if Joe Burrow gets on the field or if Joe Burrow looks good based on the reports out of Bengals training camp. So, what I am looking at is the under in this one. Again, old coach Bruce Arians just wants to get out healthy. He saw my team can win a Super Bowl. We brought back the same offense as a year ago. We're good to go. Let's get to week one. Cincinnati, they have a quarterback coming off ACL surgery. They did not draft an O lineman in the first round. They think they addressed it later in the draft, but we'll see what happens. I don't know if I'm trusting that O line. Burrow probably plays minimum amount of snaps, if any. Higgins, I would personally, if I was coaching this team, it'd be 0 snaps. But I'm not in the huddle, so I can't say for certain it'll be 0 snaps. But yeah, I'm looking at Cincinnati's backup quarterbacks, and Ryan Finley doesn't excite me too much. Eric Dungy does, though. Eric Dungy, very excited. So if Dungy gets in, over. But if Dungy doesn't play, I'm sticking with my bet of the under.
Well, so it's gonna be very interesting because since we have the extra regular season week, we took away one preseason week. And what we used to see with 4 preseason games was in week one, all of your starters pretty much started absolutely 0% of the game. I mean, kind of like what the Cowboys did in the Hall of Fame game. In some of these instances, you wouldn't bring your starters on the road trip in some cases. So it'll be interesting to see how some of these teams adjust with 3 preseason games and working in that case. I like both of your plays, Brett. I'm staying away from preseason week one, to be honest, but your Jets and my Giants play, so I just have to ask as a gentleman, the over-under set at 35. Should we be looking at that under too?
Higgins, that one scares me because we're two teams where our starting quarterbacks actually need the reps. So that one could go over a low 30 total. I wouldn't advise either coach to spend more than a quarter maybe out there with our first team, but I could see the first team getting the full quarter. Each team puts up 7. That's 14. Then you get a bad turnover in your own, inside your own 20. Then there's another. Like, you could see this thing spiraling out of control with where these
Sounds like the
quarterbacks
Meadowlands.
are.
Sounds like the Meadowlands and just sounds like both of these teams. You're absolutely right. The Giants are technically the home team. The Jets are technically the favorite, but it's only by 1 point. So I don't know. If the Giants are the underdogs, I'll probably talk myself into betting on the Giants by Saturday. But I don't want to be giving out any NFL preseason picks because I don't recommend betting on NFL preseason personally. Personally, that's just me.
All right.
Well, Brett, before we get out of here, Levy Lock pick of the pod, and I'll give you the honors. Let's hear what you got.
All right, Higgins. Well, I don't know why I get the honors. I feel like I haven't won a bet in forever. But Rickie Fowler is going to break his slump. I'm going to break my slump. Together, we're going to be the slump breaking duo, and he's going to finish in the top 20 for me. We're going to bust out of our slumps, Ricky, at plus 260. You and I, we're doing it together.
And that's why I was giving you the honors, because you know what? All of us are going to win. Ricky's going to make the playoffs. You're going to win your Levy lock. I'm going to win my pick of the pod, because the Giants minus 1.5 over the Rockies just makes sense. The Giants are back home. The Giants are the best team against the run line in the MLB. And the Rockies are the punching bag of the NL West right now, as the Giants are still ahead in the NL West, 4 games ahead of the Dodgers, in fact. But they need every game they can get, so they can't afford to lose any games to Colorado right now. I expect the Giants to be motivated. I expect Alex Wood on the mound, or Logan Webb on the mound, to get it done. And I expect the Giants to cover minus 1.5, no problem. And the plus 130, that's just icing on the cake. So I'm hoping you win your Levy lock. I'm hoping Rickie Fowler makes the playoffs, and I'm hoping the Giants cover their minus 1.5, and we're all happy come episode 158. What do you say?
Higgins, hold on. I want to wait to respond. Yeah, Higgins, sorry. Hold on. 3, two, one. Higgins, I'm all for that. I'm all for the bet. I like Logan Webb on the mound in at home versus the Rockies. I think that's a smart bet. I think it's time America just stops doubting the Giants. They're somehow gonna win that division, even with the Super Dodgers. Like they're just on a fucking roll.
I think the Dodgers. I think the the Dodgers. I think the Giants are going to win the division. I agree with you there. I actually, in between last episode and now, found myself placing a bet on the Giants to win the World Series because I still think that they're undervalued. At the time, they were plus 1,300, so I took them there. Just threw a unit on it. Said, "Why not?" I'm not giving it out as a podcast pick. I'm just being transparent, saying that I took that. But the only spot that worries me, the Giants in the postseason, is their pitching staff. That's the only thing. But I think you're right. I think they are going to end up taking this NL West. And that just seems more apparent. They're just running through it right now. It'll be interesting. Well, that's the episode. Make sure to follow us on social media at NBBPod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel. We'll be giving out some picks between now and on Monday when our next episode comes out. This has been episode 156 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll see you after the weekend.